We are back with a midweek update, and we are keeping our foundation intact while tightening a few spots based on projections, recent form, and the news cycle since yesterday. We are sticking with Sam Darnold, a quarterback from Seattle, against New England, who have a tough defense overall. The dash rank at 100 with an 18-point projection at 16,200 still fits our ceiling build, and the Y is unchanged but reinforced. He just posted 30 fantasy points one game ago, and the post-title news flow remains favorable. Essentially, sports highlighted that Darnold won his maiden Super Bowl ring in year one with Seattle, and debate pieces about his path to a second ring keep framing him as a quarterback on the rise. In a tough matchup, we still prefer the Darnold to JSN connection for pure slate-breaking correlation. We are keeping Drake May in the pool from New England against Seattle, who have a tough defense overall, and we are bumping his exposure slightly as the best run back and a direct pivot build. The dash rank is 99 with a 21-point projection at 16,500 and a steady 22 fantasy points per game on the season. The Y is clean. National coverage noted he barely lost 2025 MVP to Matthew Stafford and led New England to the Super Bowl. And way too early, so 2026 MVP projections have him right in the mix. If your contest favors raw projection over correlation, May rates as the sharper single-entry alternative. We are making our biggest change at running back and rotating to Tre'Veyon Henderson from New England against Seattle, who have a tough defense overall. At 5,700 with a 12-point projection and a 13 fantasy points per game baseline, Henderson gives us pass game juice and touchdown equity at a friendlier salary than our prior pick. The why for the switch from Ramondre Stevenson to Henderson is usage profile and explosive plays. News pieces have emphasized that Henderson detonated on the scene with 968 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns in his first season, and that his passing ability is a real weapon. Against a tough defense, we prioritize the back who can create value in space and in 2-minute situations. We are keeping Jackson Smith-Njigba as our core wide receiver from Seattle against New England, who have a tough defense overall. The dash rank is 100, the projection is 27 at 17,400, and he carries a 23 fantasy points per game baseline with recent outputs of 34, 11, and 14. The Y remains airtight. Coverage after the Super Bowl stressed he took over as Seattle's primary receiving threat and played the biggest role by a receiver for a Super Bowl winning team in NFL history. With that role clarity, he remains the best single piece on the slate. We are adding Cooper Kupp as our salary-conscious flex from Seattle against New England, who have a tough defense overall. At 5,200 with a dash rank of 91 and a 9-point projection, Kupp gives us affordable exposure to Seattle's passing game, alongside or opposite JSN. The Y is strong for value builds. He has scored 14, 11, and 5 in his last 3, and multiple articles this week have reinforced that his move to Seattle has been a seamless homecoming. One feature detailed that he started 15 games and logged 47 receptions for 593 yards in 2025, while another covered his Washington State roots and how the trade set up a Super Bowl run. If defenses shade extra help to JSN, Kupp's underneath and intermediate volume becomes the slate unlock at this price. We are holding our tight end stance with Hunter Henry from New England against Seattle, who have a tough defense overall. At 10,500 with a 10-point projection and 11 fantasy points per game, he retains red zone leverage in a condensed passing tree for Drake May. The Y is backed by Sportsline's prop model, which specifically highlighted Henry among their top Week 1 tight end targets. And in a tough matchup, we prioritize touchdown paths at tight end. We are keeping A.J. Barner in our Seattle stacks at tight end at 7,200 with an 8-point projection. The Y is correlation and price relief when you choose to triple stack Darnold or capture a cheaper Seattle touchdown if New England sells out on JSN. With coaching movement noted after the Super Bowl run, there is room for small usage tweaks that can swing a single game slate. We will also note Austin Hooper as a pure punt from New England at 2,000 against Seattle, who have a tough defense overall. The why is salary leverage only. He has the snap profile and past red zone chops to look into a score at the stone minimum. And 2 Pro Bowls on the resume remind us the ceiling exists even if the recent fantasy point scoring history shows a low floor. We are staying with Jason Myers at kicker from Seattle against New England, who have a tough defense overall. At 8,100 with an 11-point projection and recent games of 7, 11, and 8, he continues to be exactly the piece you want when drives stall. The news continues to work for us here. He just hit 5 field goals in the Super Bowl, the most ever on that stage, and public chatter even floated him as MVP. In lower touchdown environments, we bank the floor and correlated ceiling with Seattle stacks. We are still comfortable using Andy Borregales as a bringback for New England at 7,500 with a 9-point projection. Off-season coverage emphasized he became the primary kicker immediately, posted 126 points at an 86.7% success rate as a rookie, and in a game where Seattle tightens in the red zone, he can match Myers on volume. We are keeping Patriots defense as our primary choice at 6,000, given their recent fantasy outputs of 12, 7, and 5, and our thesis from yesterday stands. Pressure and red zone stands can compress Seattle into Myers-heavy sequences and create turnover chances in a post-title game script. We are adding a secondary pool share of Seahawks defense at 6,600 for lineups that lean into a Maye struggle scenario and further correlate with Myers. That split gives us coverage for both primary scripts without overcommitting. We will include Stefon Diggs as a mid-tier New England receiver pivot when you build around May. At 12,900 with a 12-point projection and a 13 fantasy points per game, baseline with recent outputs of 7, 14, and 4, he is the clean leverage off tight end chalk in May stacks. The why is simple. When New England needs chunk plays, Diggs remains the most likely perimeter alpha, and coverage this week has focused on his role coming off the Super Bowl loss and what the Patriots need to address around him. We are not changing our core structure from yesterday at quarterback, wide receiver, or kicker, and our reasons are the same. Darnold to JSN remains the highest upside pairing backed by recent performance and multiple news pieces underscoring JSN's ascension. The big change is at running back, where we rotate to Trevayon Henderson for explosiveness and pass game utility against a tough defense. And we are adding Cooper Kupp as a key value flex to diversify Seattle stacks without sacrificing ceiling.